Hello, everyone. Welcome to the community webinar on scaling education innovations hosted by HundrED and our partners at Motriz. My name is Jamie Lee, and I'm the Education Design Specialist at HundrED, and I'll be your host for today. So this webinar is a community conversation about the work that Motriz and their partners in public schools throughout Brazil have been doing to implement their Predictors of Learning tool. The Predictors of Learning is an educational management solution that diagnoses school district policy and needs, guiding data-driven decision-making. By analyzing data from the school district leaders' responses, it provides a comprehensive view of policy implementation, identifying strengths and gaps in areas like curriculum, assessment, teacher training, literacy, learning recovery, and equity. So before we start, I just have a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, so don't worry if you miss any part of it. The recording will be published on the event page a few days after the event, but then the breakout rooms won't be recorded. So this is also an interactive session with the community, so don't worry about that. But just in case people wanted to hear the presentation before the breakout rooms, that will be available later on. And then there will also be time for like questions. And there's 100 team members in the chat. So if ever you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to just put them in the chat. Yeah. All right. So the goal for today's session is to learn and share what works when taking an innovation to a new context. And we will be joined by Paula Carnero, Head of Innovation and Development, and Ana Luisa Faragi Silva, Head of Data and Monitoring, Evaluation, Research and Learning at Motriz. And then our host will be Anina Hutala, which is our HundrED's Content Director, who will be facilitating the discussion. But we also hope to hear from you and your experiences or questions about implementing education solutions in your own context or in new ones. And so we'd like for this not just to be a webinar where we talk at you, but that it's an interactive conversation, which is why we will be splitting into breakout rooms later to share about your thoughts and experiences. All right, so to start off, I'd like to invite Paula and Ana Luisa now to tell us a bit of the backstory of Motriz's Predictors of Learning tool. What is it, and what was the need your team saw in Brazilian schools, and how does this tool address that? And what's been the most exciting thing that you've seen from schools trying out your program? All right,
Nice. So
over to you.
thank you very much for the invitation to talk a little bit more about the experience here. I'm really excited to exchange some ideas and insights and experiences with you all. So the Predictors of Learning tool is a tool that we use to measure the process and policies of educational practices in public education in Brazil. The background of this work is that we learned that we used to have some school impact when we worked individually with the schools, but we were willing to promote more impact through the school network itself, providing more sustainable impact. So we learned more through literature review, turned these into indicators, and have been learning how to implement this through action planning together with public school networks. And what has been most exciting is to learn how schools can boost their voices through this kind of tool and actually be heard by the school networks and promote a interactive process of building public policies together with the schools and the school networks themselves, providing more sustainable impact.
Hi, everyone. It's amazing to be here with you. And Anna told a little bit about why we decided this was so important. And just to try to put some color on what we see from impact from there. Actually, when the schools are heard and we look over to try to understand the why of some public policies are not being well implemented or why they are breaking through the process and they are not fulfilling their goal to actually make sure that we have better learning outcomes for the students. We are really able to move from guilty to try to see everybody who is guilty in the system and really make sure we are able to intervene in the right part of the process. So we are able to understand in some of the structure, if it's assessment, if it's teacher training, curriculum, in different aspects of how a school network should be design it and organize it, and how and where we should develop a action plan and make sure we are defining interventions that are actually able to implement very quickly. So we do not have to maybe try to tackle a problem that will not be performing the best outcome. And in practice, we see networks in Brazil in municipal and also in state level that are actually making sure students are learning sometimes 6 times faster than other networks in Brazil who are not being through our process of assessment from the Predictors of Learning tool. So it's really amazing to see when you have the information on how you should intervene. This will make the goal from everybody in this room, I believe, that's to see children learning more and faster.
Great. Thank you so much for explaining your work. So now I'd like to turn it over to our content director, Anina, to fill us in on how HundrED has been working with Paula and Anina Luiza's team in Brazil. Over to you, Anina.
Thank you, Jamie, and hello all. And thank you also, all of you community members, for participating in our session today. My name is Anina, and I am happy to share a little brief overview of HundrED's implementation journey project with our friends at Motriz. So we had the joy to collaborate with Motriz this year to gather and showcase the journey of the implementation of the Predictors of Learning tool. We gather the learnings, challenges, and revelations of teachers and practitioners on the ground. After all, how practitioners feel about the innovation, whether or not it's useful for the wider goals, makes or breaks any attempt of scaling a solution. So with Motriz, we created a beautiful video and an implementation journey page where school leaders shared their thoughts about the Predictors of Learning tool. And I think Megan or Jamie will share those links in the chat as well. But I'd like to hear from Ana Luisa, from you. Like, I understand your team has done a lot of research on this tool, and you've gathered a lot of feedback from the school districts directly that have implemented it. And next, you're planning to scale the tool and continue enhancing the methodology. So can you share a little bit about the metrics you're most interested in as you now continue to develop the tool in new contexts?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So this kind of methodology has been being developed since 2017, when at first we made a literature review about what had the most probability of impacting student learning outcomes, considering what could be done by a school network itself. So the Secretary of Education, what could be done by him or her. So considering those aspects, we developed those indicators that were what we call the basic indicators. So Paula has brought some examples about them. So is the curriculum being implemented through lesson plans? How is teacher training? Are teachers having access to adequate development, opportunities of development? How is the school assessment, the test scores? Does the school network has a visibility about students' outcomes performance throughout the year? Is it adequate? Are teachers actually using it? Do they feel like they have the support they need? So it's like there is no way to promote a work without having those three basic pillars per se. So curriculum, teacher training, the teacher opportunities for development, and school assessment. But also there are so many other aspects that we have been developing throughout the years. So there is target planning, there is if the school principals have adequate opportunities for development themselves. How is pedagogical support working in that school network? Do we have adequate instruments and tools to promote racial equity? So it's not natural to have a difference of performance according to race. So is there an adequate structure to promote equity itself? And through the last years, we have been investing a lot on three main different indicators. First, if students are having adequate numeracy and literacy at the right age. So in Brazil, it's defined that until the second grade, students must learn how to read adequately so they can learn more things throughout their school life. The second one, which is really important for us, is if the middle school is having an adequate implementation. It's a critical phase in students' life because, usually you used to have one teacher that knew your name, knew your family, knew who you are, knew how you like to draw and how you like to write. And all of a sudden, you become part of a system where you have many teachers. Not all of them know you very well. And you are going through so many different changes. You are becoming a teenager. Your body is changing. Your life is changing. Your mind is changing. And usually the school is not adequate enough to provide you the needs you have in that phase. So we're investing a lot in developing indicators that show if there are adequate processes to develop a school that is interesting for the teenagers who are becoming young people there. So this is one of the indicators where we are focusing a lot. And also we are actually deepening our work on racial equity because we want to move what is going on when we talk about inequality. So our students, like in Brazil, we talk about Black and Indigenous people. Are they having adequate access to the opportunities they need? So we're moving on some indicators regarding that. And those are the indicators that we are really interested in developing. We are also gathering, usually we have the school networks may or may not have their own standardized assessments, and each one is adequate to their local curriculum as it should be. And we are developing some tools to gather all those results and learn how to evaluate them and help them build some solutions that are specific to the personalized needs of every student. So those are the indicators that we are looking for. But there are three main changes that we have been looking. The first one, to have better measurement. So those are the indicators, and every indicator needs to be improved throughout time because the population changes, and you have to have adequate psychometric analysis in order to improve the measurement. So we are looking for developing better measurement. The second one is to have to bring closer measurements to student learning. So more locally led information, more frequent, and also to have measurements that are closer to student learning. So, so we have the teacher training process. Are the classes better? Do students feel like they are having better classes being provided to them? Do they feel more engaged? Are they more interested in the school life? Do they feel like they have a future when we talk about education? So we want to move closer to the student needs also, not only the processes, but also how they feel about it. And we want to make it more frequent. So how can we measure this throughout the pedagogical support processes that are locally working in every school network? So those are some indicators, mainly talking about middle school, and also those three main aspects: better measurement, closer to student learning, and more frequent measurement too.
No, thank you so much. And it's really fascinating how you take this holistic view of the life realities and developmental stage. So really, it's really fascinating work for us at HundrED too. And we're excited to see what will happen as you take this tool to Colombia in the next part of your work. I see questions in the chat. I wonder, Jamie, Megan, um, will we go through those in the end? Or yes, I see.
Yeah, let's go through them in the end.
Yes, let's do that. So hold to that thought and leave it for the final part of this webinar. Um, Paula, what do you think are the most crucial things for any innovator seeking to implement their tool in new contexts? So kind of broadening the scope a little bit, like taking this innovator perspective. What are you currently paying most attention to?
Thank you for that question. And there are so many things. I'll try to make some sense of the different priorities because it's really tricky when you try to take something that's really related to your field work. So this methodology Ana Luisa was telling about in more detail, it was born from the needs of our daily work. We have a very hands-on approach with the local governments, and we understood the need to assess that. But then we look at the impacts and we were sure we wanted to take this further to different realities, to different contexts, to make sure more people are benefiting from that. So the first part was to understand how tech could benefit the methodology, because it was pretty much of we were there throughout the process. It was like 3 months of hard work, many people not sleeping well, and actually calling to some school leaders and saying, please answer our form. And this was not scalable. So the first thing was to understand how tech could be an asset for us and how this could take further. So the first part of the project that we are here detailing a little bit more was to understand how to develop a platform that could work with low internet in different contexts and how this could be even more suitable for different school leaders answering this extense form actually. So we developed a first prototype. It was tested in Brazil and it was actually also tested in Colombia right now. So we partnered with Looker Foundation in Manizales and we had almost 50 schools from rural areas answering this methodology they never heard about before. And it was amazing to see the engagement. So we learned that yes, it worked. It was possible from a tech field to make sure this was happening. Then we also had to understand how we are making sure we are asking the right questions for the different contexts. And I think this was even more difficult than the tech parts. Not that the tech part was easy because it never is, but we really know the ground in Brazil. We were able to figure it out or to where to find the evidence to make sure we are asking the right questions. When we're moving to Colombia for this testing partnership, we had to understand a completely different background, a completely different scenario. So it was really important for some of our teammates to go to the field. So we had a discovery trip. We were in deep discussions with Looker Foundation team to understand what was suitable for Colombia. And I think this is one of the parts that we still haven't figured out on how to make sure this is available for anywhere in the world, because to ask the right questions, we need to understand the context. So that was really difficult, but we managed to do that. And actually, they now have already the answers and they are using this for the planning for the next year. So that's really awesome. And then this goes to the 30 very difficult parts. That is, after we run the questionnaire and we have a big overview of that region or that school district or network, we then make sure they're observing the recommendations throughout implementation. And that in Brazil is, I believe, where the beauty of our work goes through, because we take that action plan and we are actually there in the daily basis, holding hands together with the network and the schools and implementing different approaches. So now we need to understand how we are making sure we are giving this information in a usable and actionable way. So they're actually making a good use of that. So here I saw a question in the chat, and I know we will go there later, but just to give a spoiler, we really think AI is going to be a powerful tool for that. So we are starting to run some pilots to have and a co-pilot that can guide you through some of the answers and feedback. but that's also a big challenge to make sure we are able to scale to different contexts. So right now, we have done this for uh, um, more than 40 school districts in Brazil, in municipal and state level. We did this in Manizales, in Colombia, and want to make sure we are able to expand internally in Brazil and then understand what we can do even more for different contexts as well.
Super. Thank you for that window into your development work. I'd like to invite everybody now to join a breakout room where we hope you'll consider these questions, which we will put in the chat as well. And the questions go, one, if you're an innovator, have you implemented your solution in a new context? If yes, what was the greatest challenge you faced in doing so? And if you haven't, what keeps you from doing so? And the second question is, if you're not an innovator, can you think of an example of an idea that has taken seed in multiple contexts really well? And what do you think was the secret of that success?